Hey guys, it's me, Chaos.
And it's me, Psyche.
And we're
And
back
where
with another organ trafficking episode. Okay, man, whatever,
another
man.
organ traffic.
Okay, you can take it away from here. Psyche's an expert on this.
Yeah, okay, I got this. Apparently I am. So, we're gonna talk about organ trafficking, but more generally the buying and selling of organs. Now, that's a topic that most of you probably haven't thought about, probably don't need to think about unless you like, missing a kidney or something. But we're gonna so that's basically what we're gonna be talking about. Now, buying and selling of organs sounds really just funky in the way it's presented, especially when you get to the underlying darkness of it. Like buying and selling people, that wasn't okay. So out came what human trafficking, and this in the very same it has that same whole underlying issue with it. So as you all know, or actually as you all probably would think about if you try to well just think about it. There's probably a pretty long waiting list getting organs. People, they lose their liver because they're drinking so much. They lose their kidneys most frequently, and of course, not many people are out there for donating a kidney on Sunday. So they're on the waiting list, and the gap between available organs and people who need them is pretty big. 10% of those waiting for an organ worldwide actually get it. So you have a 9 in 10 chance of just not getting an organ if you're waiting for it.
That's pretty much
And in
guaranteed death.
2014,
Damn.
there were 100. Yeah. Basically, assuming it's not, like during the waiting process too. If you have a missing kidney and you're waiting for like another kidney, you have to be on a machine, right? I think that's how it works. You have to be on a machine that cleans your
Dialysis
blood for
machine,
you,
I
and
think.
it's not like yeah, dialysis machine. That's exactly what it is. So in 2014, 120,000 people were waiting for organs. Out of those, 101,000 were just straight up for kidneys. And in the U.S. specifically in 2007, people died while waiting in that year. So even further on this, say they did get an organ, right? It would still be a problem in the U.S. at least because it costs 400,000 an average for a kidney transplant. That's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
that's
be
like a
honest. It's
house
kind of
right
ridiculous
there.
that it costs you $400,000 to get.
It's like you're paying off your
Yeah, literally,
mortgage.
that's like a house right there. You gotta like Jesus, like all at once. And so then it sucks to suck. You've been waiting, right? You've been on a machine. So then the doctor's like, all right, guys, we got somebody with an organ for you. So you're like, oh great, and then you get outside the hospital, you get the bill, it's 400,000. You're like, well, I guess it's time to sell my house. So
Literally.
Chaos, what do you think about buying and selling organs? Would you feel comfortable with other people, like traveling businessmen sell? Would
Well,
you be open for that idea?
organs can be used for a variety of different things. Like, sure, it can also like help save lives, but also the scientific community can usually really needs organs to like perform their experiments, right? Like, if we can't solve liver
Mm-hmm.
cancer without actual livers to like test it on, right? We like sure we could use like does petri dishes, but we would need the actual liver when like testing, like when doing large scale experiments on them. But and how are you gonna get that, right? You can't just like ask some live person like, hey, you give me your liver. No, you have to take it from like usually it's dead people who like just died or something and wanted their organs donated to science, or I guess someone just
Mm-hmm.
like wants to kill themselves and just like donates to you, whatever. But yeah, so it can also help with
Yep.
like scientific experiments and research and stuff like that. So I guess well, what makes it illegal? Let me ask you this: what makes it illegal? Is it that people are taking organs without other people's consent, or is it like, well, what makes it illegal exactly?
What makes buying and selling organs privately in the United States illegal?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Well, for the United States, at least, like many other countries, It's illegal because there's an act saying so. I think it's. Give me a second. Let me just. Yeah. Okay. 1984. There was this act called the NOTA. NOTA. It stands for not important. It basically what it does is it made it a crime for and I quote, for any person to knowingly acquire, receive, or otherwise transfer any human organ for valuable consideration for use in human transplantation if the transfer affects interstate commerce, because they gotta get that interstate commerce card in there.
Interstate commerce. What if it's
Power.
inside? Wait,
Now, uh,
what if it's inside the state?
if you like you need an organ and you're over in New York, and then this guy in Ohio hits you up and he's like, "Yo, I'll give you $500," or no, I'll give you my organ if you give me $500, and you're like, "Cool, man." So,
Not
well,
the interstate
yeah, we all
commerce.
know how prohibition turned out, right? We all know how prohibition turned out with the banning of like what liquor. They're making what Al Capone, right? Al Capone. I was about to say El Chapo. It ended up making like Al Capone and a bunch of what rings for selling alcohol. Now, in this case for the USA, it ends up encouraging organ transplantation. Organ trafficking and buying in a much more dangerous, coercive, and dirtier way than if it was regulated by the government, which is what I'm proposing. So, people are discussing buying and selling organs. Some people are against it because it just sounds wrong. Other people are for it.
Yeah.
Specifically, I think that we should allow buying and selling organs, but only through the government, because private buying and selling is just pretty uncomfortable if you ask me. Because you could have whole companies just be like an organ factory. Well, not a factory, but like buy like getting organs, selling organs. You don't really want to be the guy who asks, "Yo, where did you get that from?" So I'm gonna trust the government on this one, even though everything they do is pretty slow. But I think buying and selling organs here. I'll go into further on how this would work because I've thought about it, and I think that would be the best situation for fixing the whole problem of people dying because they're not getting their organs. This other thing I'm going to talk about, what organ tourism or traffic, I'll explain what that is later. But so if you outlaw buying and selling organs, it ends up people trying to get. So like say you're like dad's on their deathbed or something, right? Like, and they need an organ pretty bad. Like last in the waiting list, right? The waiting list, and you got to wait for everybody else to die before you get an organ. So you either give your organ, right? Say you can't give your organ, right? It's like, I don't know, a heart transplant or something. You might do that, but you're probably gonna be looking pretty desperately for an organ, right? So you might turn to some shady source. It's gonna be a pretty dangerous, thing like buying cocaine off the streets, right? You're probably gonna punch in the face. So it's gonna be encouraging a dangerous, coercive, and a dirty way of buying and selling organs, which is what we organ trafficking. Well, it's called organ trafficking because it's illegal. That's why it's called trafficking. But that's why I'm saying that we should encourage, well, not encourage, just stop the outlawing by the NOTA Act of 1984 and have organ trade be illegal, but not commercially. Have it be legal as long as it goes through the government. So, what do you think about that compromise, like having organ trade, but only through the government instead of having it be commercial?
Well, before we get to that, I want to bring up two interesting points. What's interesting is that the
Uh-huh.
organ traffic, like this could apply to like drugs too and stuff like that. The very fact that it's illegal makes it like very rare to get by and very expensive to come by, and thus once like how and then what do like dealers do with that information? They capitalize it, right? Capitalize on it. Since it's very very expensive to get that they create an entire business off it, and that's why trafficking becomes like more and more bigger because it's illegal and it's very scarce and it's very expensive. So that's why drugs exist. Like that's why the drug trafficking
Yeah.
problem is so big. It's because it's so rare and expensive that the dealers make tons of money off it, and then other dealers want to get even more money off it, and like that's how the problem starts. So I guess like maybe making it legal will decrease organ trafficking and actually make it like, and if you have like set of rules and regulations, then maybe it won't be like such a big problem with the whole trafficking part, and maybe it'll just be like a normal business, right? Because like and this leads to my other point.
Yep.
We already do kind of do this, right, with the blood, right? We don't buy or sell blood, we donate blood, but like we donate like a lot and lot we people donate lots and lots of blood, right? Way more than like organs, right? So we kind of already do this with blood, so maybe if we do like incorporate that same way with organs. I mean, the reason why we can do it with such a big way with blood is because blood replenishes over time. Organs, you have a very limited amount of them, so maybe like it won't be to as such a large extent because organ donating already kind of exists. But like, I think we should make it legal because if we with the compromise that we also have sets of laws and regulations so that to prevent like stealing organs from somebody in the night while they're sleeping or something. Like we could like I have we can have like IDs on the organs so that we can know whose organ it is and where it came from, and so that we can make it legal. That's just another way that we could make it legal. And I don't see why not. The government like can't like have their share in the business as well, because I feel like if we make it government sponsored, then it like I don't know, creates some sort of safety, I guess. Like whenever you see something, oh, the government is like doing something, it's like it gives you a sense of security, right? It's just like some private company selling organs. I guess if the government did it, it would give you another sense of security and like make it even look more even legal. But yeah.
Yep. Yeah. You basically had the same thing that I did with the whole prohibition argument, right? You know, it's going to be, and it leads up to the same thing, like with prohibition, with like outlawing, like marijuana stuff like that, where the people underground are going to be capitalizing off that. When in fact, if the government takes it up, they could be capitalizing off this with the whole idea I have. So, before I talk about like my whole solution, because I have like a 5-point plan, right? I have a pretty fat plan that we could put in to works in the United States to where we could fix the whole organ waiting problem, and encourage, like, basically the whole debate is about, is it, should we allow buying and selling organs? I say yes, and I'm going to explain how it would be a excellent, outstanding move to do that through this very specific way. But before we do that, while we're on the topic of buying and selling organs, we can talk about why it's such a problem. Paradoxically, talking about the way to fix the whole problem would be to actually make it legal. The problem itself is the organ trafficking. Like, that's the underlying problem in buying and selling organs. Other than people are just uncomfortable with, getting their organs from like a random source, like selling it. That's why I'm saying we should do it through the government. Underlying that is like organ trafficking. It dates back to like the 1960s. My English teacher didn't believe me when I said this, right?
Oh yeah, share that story with the people. That's a pretty funny story.
Pardon your yeah. So originally I was gonna do the whole organ trafficking thing as like a topic for my AP English class back in the day. So I proposed it to my English teacher, right? Nobody had this idea before. Everyone was like, yeah, I want to legalize marijuana. But, like, but my teacher, I thought, like, he basically gave his opinions on what everyone else thought about it. He thought about it. And he said, I was expecting him to be like, okay, well, the main problem that you're going to have to do is, like, explain how it's going to, like fix the problem of organ trafficking, why we should even like think about legalizing buying and selling organs, because that sounds weird to any normal person. But he said that I'm gonna have to prove that it's real. I didn't really I was not expecting that, because I knew it was a pretty real problem, right? I knew it was a pretty real problem. You obviously don't hear about it a lot, right? You hear about human trafficking, but you don't really hear about organ trafficking. Even though it's over $1 billion in revenue worldwide. That might not seem much worldwide, but it's $1 billion being made off of people's organs.
That's right.
Not only that, but it's tied in directly with human trafficking. Yeah. Everything's higher than most countries' GDPs right now. But like for this, so say you kidnap somebody, right? You kidnap this I don't know, this lady or whatever. So you're gonna be planning on selling her, right? Because you're in the human boss. Like, okay, we need to make some money. One idea is take a kidney. Technically, they don't need that kidney, right? So you just take a kidney, sell it for $140,000. That's the running price of kidneys in the black market. Black market prices do vary from country to country. Obviously, I don't know the prices, but I do know that a reasonable price for a kidney is $140K. If your dealer says anything higher, you're getting ripped off. They're trying to highball you, so negotiate the price down. But 140K, just take the kidney and go. It's an effective business move, right? So I was surprised that he said that I should prove it's real, because I can easily prove it's real. But he said I'm gonna have to prove it's real. Now I think he had satisfactory information in the end to believe this was a thing. I'm not sure if he thought that we should legalize buying and selling organs, but I just know that he took it into consideration. But back in the 1960s, it was even there back in the 1960s. There was this newspaper headline about a hospital in the United States, in Washington D.C. even, right? But trafficking baby organs. Now that's a business move, I guess. But basically, the lab department in the hospital, they got busted, right? The whole lab team, they had a bunch of miscarriages, right? Stillborns. They harvested the organs and they sold them. Now, not to make a joke of it, but I'm not sure how much you're going to get from a baby organ. I don't know who they were selling it to, but they made $68K off of this. It wasn't even an underground business, right? It was from a hospital.
Damn.
So yeah, it's been around a while. It ties directly into human trafficking.
Yeah, I feel like one of the
it's a pretty big problem, right?
with organ trafficking is that it forces you to put a price on a human, and that like kind of brings us back to like pseudo slavery in a way, right? People are just like numbers at this point and not even like actual people. So I guess that's like one problem with legalizing organ trafficking, is that it turns people into numbers rather than people.
Yeah. It turns even more into numbers right now, because if it ties directly into human trafficking. The more sick in the human trafficking will be taking the organs before selling the people. I'm not sure if that damages the product, if you get my drift, but yeah. So organ trafficking is a pretty big problem. It's not as big as some other problems like just selling the whole person, but it's one of the more scary ones, because you think of buying and selling organ, right? Like it's rarely happens in the case where you know those scenes where you wake up and you're like in the bathtub with like ice all around you, and you got like, I don't know, like a freaking IV strip just like going off your hand. You got like a cut where your kidney would be. Yeah. Like, oh.
Why'd you say yeah to that?
I misinterpreted what. Okay. It's not the ice bucket challenge. It's way worse. But it rarely happens like that. But it's a real possibility. It's a scary possibility. What's worse than being put into forced labor or sex labor? Having to do it without your left kidney. So, what have people tried to do to fix the problem? Of course, people, countries even, have not really been open to legalizing it, because if you legalize buying and selling organs, it's not trafficking anymore, right? You can't traffic it unless actually you still, because I don't think the government's going to be okay with you just taking organs. But they try to have other ideas on how to damage the whole trafficking ring, but at the same time fix the huge waiting list for organs. Canada, I'm gonna talk about Canada real quick. It's a pretty nice country. They had a new idea.
Free healthcare.
I wouldn't have even considered it, but they apparently their idea was to grant temporary visas to organs to Canadian recipients. Now, this technically gives the okay to buying and selling organs, right? It looks like they've given in, and they're like, okay, we need to allow some buying and selling of organs. So obviously, I don't believe it's commercialized, right? You can't just like go to your neighbor and ask for an organ and they can legally sell it to you. But according to this, they're allowing, like, if you live in Canada, if somehow you can get into contact with like some guy over in Saudi Arabia or something, and like hook him up with, like, have him organ, they could get a visa to come over to Canada for the purpose of not work, right? Not a work visa, but to give you an organ. Now, this could lead to a couple of issues, like the rich abusing the poor, right? If you're rich in Canada, you need an organ. Just pay some poor guys over in like South Africa to come over to you, give you their organs, and go back home. Well, actually, the other issue was, what if they don't go back home, right? What if it's like a way to get over the Canadian wall and in Canada, right? Like you go over, you're in the waiting room to get your organ like taken, so you can give it to this one guy you agreed to give it to. But then you just dip, right? Then you just have a random guy in Canada, illegal residents. So for the United States, at least, that would not work. Because already immigration's a whole iffy topic. Yeah. It's a whole iffy issue over if we try to do that in the United States. Canada is thinking about it, but even personally, I don't think it's a good idea. It's pretty. It's like if you come over, right? You're at the entrance gate at Ellis Island. Purpose of coming here, and you're like, I need to give my organ to somebody, and then I leave. Yeah, I'm not too comfortable with that. But at the same time, they are going the route of buying and selling organs, like just having it be a thing instead of just like trying to find a loop around on fixing the whole organ problem without
another
going that far.
potential problem with that would be that you know how sometimes you have to have the right blood type to do an organ transplant. So obviously the Canadian doctors would like require like medical proof that hey, this is my blood type, right? I'm blood type A, and therefore I can give you my liver. But what if they forge their medical documents and then they come across the border and then they end up not giving the organ and just like dip anyway without successfully giving the organ transplant? So like it creates that problem too. Just like you can like say like by word like hey I'll do this, but what if you like there's always the possibility of you not doing it and just like getting into the country for free.
Yeah, because most likely in Canada and you get a hookup with like somebody willing to give you their organ, it's because they really, really need the money, right? Yeah. And I doubt they're gonna have a physical on hand telling you what their blood type is. They don't even check those physicals, so they're gonna have to come in. It's gonna be a whole bunch of other hoopla before you even get to the organ transplant itself. But another idea that we have to fix the whole problem and like go up to the idea of buying and selling organs is harvesting organs from prisoners on death row. This leads to ethical problems.
Yeah, a lot of ethical
non-consensual. What if they're innocent? Would you be okay with allowing? Yeah. Would you be personally? Would you be okay with allowing the harvesting of organs from prisoners on death row?
Okay, so let me just ask you this: how many people are on the waiting list for organ transplant?
Like an actual number on how many is in waiting?
Yeah, or like. It like is in the millions, is it tens of millions, hundreds of millions? Like, what? How? Give me actually probably not hundreds of millions. Just like give me a number. Like in the to nearest decile, I guess.
Okay, so worldwide.
Well, in the United
worldwide,
States,
120,000 in.
Okay. Well,
in the United States, I don't even know if that fact is for the United States, but
okay, well,
just go off 120,000 people waiting.
Yeah, the reason I asked it is because on death row there are around 2,500 prisoners currently facing execution in the United States. So let's say you harvest literally all of their organs, right? That's only 2,500 organs, and you said like what 120K worldwide, and the U.S. is what like the third largest country in the world. So let's say it makes up a large percentage of that. 2,500 isn't that much when you consider the need of how many there are. So even if you do harvest all the organs in the United States, you'll have to. It's not going to meet the demand. And like, let's say you get like want to ask other countries, just like, hey, let's get your prisoners that are on death rows their organs. Let's get them. But that impedes on foreign sovereignty, and you can't like force other countries to do that. So yeah, and then we even have to get the United States to agree in the first place to do that. And again, human rights activists are probably going to intervene. Like, they're going to be like, we're treating prisoners as animals now, not even human. And that's kind of right. We can't just like. I guess I actually kind of side with them in this case because like we can't just like force people who are going to die to get their organs without their consent. I feel like we at least have to ask their consent. And I'm stereotyping prisoners, but they're most likely going to say no most of the time, since like what are they like? they probably hate society since it's society that put them there in the first place. So yeah, I wouldn't say that's a good feasible idea, just due to the various implications and problems that it would have.
Well, for me, for the United States, I thought that it might actually be a valid idea because there's going to have to be conditions, right? You can't really put the whole thing about what if they're what if it's like they're not guilty, because if they're on death row, they're on death row for a reason, right? I'm going to trust our justice system on this one and just say that they're on death row for a reason. So
your first mistake is
say they're like
system.
undeniably convicted, unconditionally guilty.
Oh man.
So yeah. So okay, they're criminals, right? And if they're on death row, they capital crimes. Now, here's the thing: they harvest the organs after they're dead, right? So it's not cruel and unusual punishment because
it says at least 4% of people on death row were and are likely innocent, and that's from the University of Michigan law professor Samuel Gross. There, so 4%.
4%, huh?
Are innocent, yeah.
Is that yeah. I think that's going off the idea of like what the 95% rule.
I don't know. It was a study done.
95% beyond unconditional. All right, study done. That's tough. But if they're on death row, the thing is they're going to die anyway, right? So we can't do anything about them being convicted instantly, but they're going to die anyway, and you got the organs after they're dead. So it's not like you're just straight up taking the organ and then shooting them in the head, right? They're going to die already. So it's not going to be cruel and unconditional punishment because they're going to use a normal way of punishment to kill them. In this case, you're going to have to use a bullet stem of the brain, I think, in order to get the organs properly. And it wouldn't be everywhere. It would only be possible in states with the death penalty. Now, unforeseen side effects will be clearing our filled prisons. So that's why I'm saying it's for the United States. Actually, hold on. Paradoxically, I don't think it would clear our prisons because they're on death row, right? They're already going to just die. It's just like it's not like it just like makes more people to get harvest. And if I think about it, a bad result of this would be, what if people, again, I'm going to trust the justice system. What if somehow they put more? It ends up creating more people in death row than would be normal, just for the purpose of getting their organs. Not sure if that would happen, but that is a pretty bad side effect if I think about it. But it's there, it's there. I suppose you're gonna have to get consent at this point. But if they're dead, you might as well take the organ, unless Okay, moving on.
Wait. Before we move on another thing. So
yeah, I think
since in 2013, 3,125 people were on death row in the United States, but since 1977. Only 666 of them have been killed. So that again shows. And in 2018 alone, only 25 death row inmates were executed. So at the rate we're going at, it's going to take like decades probably for all the inmates on death row to be killed.
They're what, sitting there? Is that how it works?
Yeah, they're
personally, I don't really know how death row works. They're literally just say, okay, that's tough. It's like, okay, sir, you're gonna die,
but people are on the waiting list for organs. People are actually on the waiting list to die. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Moving on to a different idea. Then I'm pretty sure earlier you were talking about its contribution to science, right?
Yeah.
Not actually selling the organs for science. There's there on the other topic of science, it would be making organs, advancing biomedical technology to artificially produce organs to fix this problem. Now, the problem with that is right now it's not the most reliable, and it is definitely not the most cost effective right now. But in the future, it is definitely a valid solution, and the opinion on it not being very effective or cost reliable right now, I think, is semi-recent. But going back, there's this other whole side to the whole issue of should we allow buying and selling organs commercially or whatever type of you want to talk about. So we already established it's the whole trafficking ordeal, the underlying problem of it. There's 21 million victims of human trafficking, not organ trafficking. 21 million victims of human trafficking worldwide. I don't know how many of them get their organs taken, but it's a billionaire business, right? It qualifies as a billionaire business. Uh, in the United States, we actually don't have to worry about it too much, organ trafficking wise, because the main problem here is sex trafficking. 80% of it in and out is sex trafficking. But in other countries, it's definitely going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Now, uh, we talked about why it exists, right? Because of the whole issue and the gap between organs available and people who need them, right? It's insane about just that whole gap. But what does this gap lead to? Having 10% of those waiting get it, having 120,000 people waiting, having 7,000 dying because they're waiting. That leads to, other than trafficking, it leads to transplant tourism. Have you ever heard of transplant tourism, and would you like to take a guess as to what it is?
Transplant tourism. Well, when I
Yes.
think of tourism, I think of like you're going somewhere, and transplant. I guess you're like taking one thing and moving it to another place. So, um, I guess you're. I actually can't guess. I have no clue.
So let's see. Basically, it is when you go to another country so you can get an organ from there where there is a better organ market, like more people willing to give organs. That's why it's
Why would you
called
call it
tourism, right?
tourism though? Like make it like
Yeah,
transplant migration, I guess. Like why tourism?
it's called tourism because it's because tea transplant tea tourism. It works. But instead of going to like Paris to see the Eiffel Tower, you're going to Paris to get an organ transplant. But here's the thing: as you can imagine, going to some random country to go off like an organ deal with like some shady guys you probably met there. I don't even know if you'd speak the language. Probably isn't the best idea, right? It's even like a problem, like not here, but doing a random cross country deal, especially one that's like probably illegal, because not a lot of countries have open buying and selling illegal.
I guess this would be for like
This
desperate
usually leads to
people,
death, right? You
like
get
people who
scammed.
are like literally going to die the next like week or
Yep.
something if they don't get their organ. So I guess yeah, this desperate times lead to desperate measures. I guess.
Yep. So that's what transplant tourism is. It's it is a thing. Definitely, it is a thing. But if they don't get the organ, they're gonna die anyway.
Yep.
What I meant to say is that if they go there, right, to get the organ to save their life, usually it ends up in them getting scammed and dying, right? Maybe they get another organ taken, something like that. It doesn't end up going well because it's such a shady deal. Branching off this, people in poor countries are exploited in not the same manner, but they're exploited for cheap organs, like especially in India and Pakistan. Both report 2,000 citizens each exporting their organs, right? Like you sell your organ to somebody else and get some money mailed back to you, right? It's pretty popular because they're so poor. So yeah, exploitation of the poor going on there. And our current policies have failed, right? Our NOTA of 1984. That's what the government goes off of as a memo regarding organ cases. That hasn't really worked, right? Our waiting list has just been building. Apparently, every 10 minutes, another person gets added to it. So Taiwan's plan we've discussed is iffy at the minimum. Canada's plan is just not going to work for the.
Yeah.
It's not immigration is not the best topic. So we on the other hand, artificial organ creation using the power of science isn't viable within like the next few years, but it is a future solution that could definitely work for the future. So, what do we do when buying and selling organs? It seems our only option would be to legalize it, but you have to be very careful about legalizing it. And that's where my plan comes in. Do you have anything to say before we get to that?
Say about what?
Just like, actually, okay. What do you think would be some viable solutions now that basically every single one we've talked about isn't the best?
I was thinking, well, if we go back to my ID idea, we can like ID the organ so that we know where it is coming from and who it is coming from. So I guess That way we can make it legal instead and not have the
It's going through the
trafficking
government,
problem.
right?
Yeah, make it through the government because again, it gives you that sense of security.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we're in agreement that we should legalize buying and selling organs, but not commercially.
Yeah,
The
not for
funniest thing is
profit.
that this is if we allow, yeah, not commercially, not privately. The best thing is this is actually a loophole.
Maybe like we can give an
Mantra that they go off
incentive
of NOTA
to donate your
1984.
organs in the first place. Cause
Yep.
like you know how there's like tax relief programs like or and tax breaks like if you like donate to charity, maybe if you donate your organs, then we could give another tax incentive, I guess.
So regarding what the NOTA thing, the name of it is the National Organ Transplant Act of 1984, and I already said what it did. Right, it made a crime for any person knowingly acquire, receive, or otherwise etc.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're talking about, what we agreed upon, is allowing the buying and selling of organs, but only through the government, because we can all trust the government, and it just makes it feel safer than having it be from some private company that can fail in its business, get sued, etc. I don't know where they get their organs from, but we can actually allow this to happen because the National Organ Transplant Act of 1984 only discusses all these things commercially. If we were to have this go through the government, there would actually be no problem with this interfering with the NOTA Act 1984 at all. So this is a perfectly valid idea of having it go through the government. And now I believe I can get into my point plans. Anything to add?
Not really, not now, no.
All right, so this first thing we can do is I've added the name to each of these. We could, if it comes down to it, have the what? Oh yeah, the whole angel from I call it I call this thing the what? Angel from Death deal.
Interesting.
Pretty nice name, but this is the whole what?
I
call
wonder
it the
what
Angel from Death deal because
one.
it's edgy, but at the same time. Yeah, I even put it in like the whole essay thing. Like I actually wrote that in there. You didn't. I'm assuming you didn't mind, but that's going off the whole harvesting organs from prisoners idea.
Yeah.
But we talked about the flaws with that. So even without this, I still have a bunch of other stuff to talk about. So disregarding the Angel from Death deal, we have next on the list the what is it?
The Big Brothers Organs Act.
Here we go. I call this the Big Brothers. Yes, the Big Brothers Organs Act. Now, basically, we are going to be following in the steps of Iran. Iran has been doing the thing that we've been talking about. Basically, people sell their organs to the government, and the government redistributes it. It's not communism. The idea is that you sell your organs to the government, and of course, you're not going to be doing that, right? Because organ donating hasn't worked. People haven't been donating their organs. People don't even donate their blood, right? I don't know why, but people haven't really even been donating their blood that often. So, yeah, the idea is that it goes through the government, buying and selling organs, but it goes through the government. Basically, you sell your organs to the government, and in exchange, you get a number of things, probably. Free temporary
healthcare
is an idea. It would basically cover the whole. Yeah. Free temporary healthcare.
I have.
It would cover the cost reservations on that.
Yep.
Huh.
Just because. So
basically,
I know healthcare is expensive, but compared to the price of an organ, you said what on the black market it's like $400K or something, or is that on the legal market?
$140K.
You said 400,000, right, for the cost of an organ. I don't think healthcare is equivalent to 400,000.
No, it's 400,000 for the.
For the what?
It's 400,000 for the cost of the surgery, apparently, but it's on the black market. Apparently, a kidney goes for 140,000.
Okay, we'll take that number, 140,000. I don't think free temporary healthcare is worth $140,000. They're better off selling it to the black market and getting more off of that. So there might be a problem with that. But I like the idea of the incentive of free healthcare. But just like the equivalency is, I don't think it is a good equivalent exchange.
Yeah, I suppose, but the thing is, when you're selling it to the black market, there's the whole ordeal of assuming you're doing this like willfully, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's the like people in India and Pakistan, they're like the people in poor countries, they're the only ones who would technically have to sell to the black market.
Yeah.
Then there's the ordeal of how do you actually get the organ out of your body. You're going to have these random guys doing it, right? They probably don't have a medical license, right? Unless they're a doctor that's fallen out. You're going to have these random guys take the organ out of your body and, allegedly give you the money. In this case, the free temporary healthcare would actually cover the cost of your removal. And we've discussed how expensive a transplant surgery is.
Mm-hmm.
So donate your organ and not have to worry about the procedure itself and paying for the procedure, but in exchange you still get free temporary healthcare.
So
here's the
procedure,
but
thing.
Just like beyond that.
Yeah, here's another thing. So you said the cost of doing the surgery is $400,000, right?
Apparently.
So wouldn't this be like a loss for the government, since it's literally better to buy an organ off the black market than to perform the surgery, since it's going to cost $400,000 to do the surgery, but only $140,000 to buy off the black market. So the government is actually kind of losing money here, in a way. They're losing about $260,000.
Here's the thing: they're not actually paying. They're not actually.
360.
They're not actually paying for the transplant itself. They're paying for the organ to get out of their body successfully. The transplant, basically, the government's going to have the organ, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you donate the organ, you get some benefits. It doesn't only healthcare. I'm sure if we thought of some stuff, we could come up with some other reasonable things that the government could do for you. But if we just go off free temporary healthcare now, including the cost of removal, this wouldn't be including the cost of the whole transplant, because the government's probably not going to be okay with paying for your whole transplant, but they will be okay with paying for your kidney to be removed. So basically, your kidney's out of your body. It's like in a glass jar, right? The government has your kidney. From there, people can get it, right? They're going to have to still pay for the procedure of the transplant and pay for the recipient's transplant, but they will pay for the donor getting the organ out of their body.
Okay. Let me just give you.
Or at least that's the idea.
Let me just give you
some
facts.
They probably won't be. Yep.
Okay, so donating the organ, not the actual transplant, like you said. So donating the organ costs on average $5,000, but can be as much as $20,000. And according to the U.S. Census Bureau data in 2013, 20% of American households had no discretionary funds at all, and only 8% could afford to donate an organ at a cost of more than $5,000 without dipping into the savings or going to debt. So one of the reasons why there is so little organ donating is because only 8% of Americans, according to the 2013 census, can actually even afford donating the organ. So I guess with this plan, that probably will increase that 8%, since you said it covers the cost of donating the organ. So more people can afford it now.
Yeah. So that's great, because far ways off from 400,000. I read the 400,000 number somewhere. I'm assuming that's probably somewhat accurate, right? But 400,000 for the actual transplant, much less, like 5,000 to 20,000 for getting the organ out of your body. That's reasonable for the government to do for you, including free healthcare for the rest. Not for the rest of your life, but temporary.
Yeah.
So that's how this whole ordeal would work. I'm sure there could be other benefits, but then the government would have your organ. Now, people, if they need an organ, could get it from the government.
Yeah.
Instead of just paying straight up cash for the whole transplant, perhaps you could pay some other way, like work, right? Like in New York, I'm pretty sure they have the Excelsior program where they're going to pay for your college, but in exchange, you have to stay in New York for 10 years, work in New York when you get a job.
Yeah.
It could be something like that, right? Pay off your debt for the organ instead of hard cash through hard work. I think that would work out somehow. So that's the idea in a nutshell. Do you see any immediate flaws with it? I'm sure there's
I mean, other than the ones I pointed out
specifics,
earlier,
but the general idea.
I guess it really depends on how much the time is for the temporary healthcare, and is it equivalent to the price of donating the organ, right? Because I don't actually pay bills or whatever, so I don't really know how much healthcare costs per year.
Yeah.
So it'll somewhat have to be like a way either equivalent or it benefits the donator on the how much healthcare they'll be receiving.
Regarding Medicare taxes, I did this in my finances class. I'm pretty sure the cost of Medicare was 1.45%, 1.35%, something like that, of your income
Okay.
before other deductions. But actually, at the same time as other deductions, your gross. So this might seem small, but if you were exempt from that, it's a plus, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Also exempt from actual other medical procedures, like say you break a leg or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to worry about paying $2,000 for. But so yeah, that's the outline of it. That's one of the parts. I think we can move on to the next part.
Yeah.
But that was the main
Oh yeah.
bones of
Also,
the whole ordeal. Doing a
the Organ Donation Tax Deduction Act is designed to create an individual income tax subtract of up to $10,000 for individuals who donate one or more human organs. So you can get an up to $10,000 tax deduction if you donate your organ. So there's that already there. $10,000 is a lot, especially when it comes to
that's
taxes.
that there. Wow.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Well, so that's the main backbone of what I'm thinking to have the whole ordeal of buying and selling organs dealt with. But moving on to dealing with the trafficking problem, or at least just like the organ problem in general, well, we could increase funding into artificial organ research via what I call the phantom. You know, because you know that they're yeah okay. I'm sure most of you know what phantom pain is, but I just like the game. So
Phantom pain
it's a
plan.
plan for the future because it's yep, because artificial organs are expensive and experimental at the moment. It could be in a similar style of how the U.S. DOS tip office and the HHS works with their money rewards to plans regarding human trafficking stuff. Speaking of that,
Wait,
I
human
have
trafficking
this
where?
last idea we could talk about called the DOS tip office, the DOS being the Department of State
Mm-hmm.
tip office, and HHS. Basically, they, as I'm going to talk about later, they donate money to other programs or worldwidely to worldwide programs regarding tackling the whole issue of human trafficking. They are donating money to help the cause in that case. So it could be a similar way to that, except donating money for our organ research in making new organs.
Okay.
Yeah. So finally, there's the I'm gonna call it the Rainbow Team.
The creation of the Rainbow Team.
Yep, creation of the Rainbow Team. Now, this is a international level of highly trained traffic specialists combining members from the France GIG, G9, American FBI, or top dogs from the AC team that we already have.
I still have
And the idea is
flashbacks
that they
whenever
would deal
hear
with
the
worldwide large
word
human
ACT.
trafficking rings. But this is the AC team.
Uh-huh.
So basically, the idea is that they bust in on the human trafficking rings because they're all highly trained and stuff with a no mercy policy, kill everybody. We don't need them. And the FBI side of things can pull a Dateline NBC. Oh, the Predator caught. But this time with organ trafficking. It would be definitely interesting watch. We can make money off that. And it would probably better international relations. I don't know. This is a very experimental idea. I've had people in conferences call me out because I've actually proposed this idea before when we were doing organ trafficking, and they're like, "Well, why should I have my German GSG9 learn from your American FBI?" Like the
Oh
whole
my
idea of
god,
combat training and
these
having.
kids.
I'm like, "Oh, okay, it's combat. I don't think they're gonna care at the end of the day as long as they know how to not die."
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I mean, on the other hand, it might improve international relations, right? Get to know the elites from the country next to you. But so be it.
I guess the main problem with this would be the
And
cost
I
of
mean,
it. Like, figure out how
yeah,
much
the
this would
cost
cost.
of it and the practicality.
Yeah.
Yeah, the practicality of having them be
Also, the fact that these
trained in human
resources
trafficking
could be going
results.
towards like bigger threats like terrorism. Like these specialists could be like doing terrorist trafficking of like illegal weapon sales rather than organ trafficking. Because I feel like that would be like a bigger deal to these countries to get like find illegal weapons trade from terrorists rather than organ trades. If you know what I'm saying. So I guess priority really makes this a little more complicated. What are your priorities?
Yeah, I know what you're talking. Be for human trafficking in general, and human trafficking is a huge problem because organ trafficking and human trafficking are probably directly related to each other, right? So I'm having this one be for human trafficking as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I don't want to take from like the top dogs, right? Like we're talking like SEAL Team 6. We don't need to do that because of course they have their bigger issues to deal with. So yeah, my last idea here would just be to simply do what we're already doing with our anti-human trafficking seat, like from organ trafficking to human trafficking, because they go hand in hand most of the time. So we're going off the quote line here: "America's children are not for sale, or their organs aren't for sale either." Now,
sounds like a 1900s propaganda poster.
That's exactly what it is. It's made by the U.S. old people in charge. They got to make it catchy for the young folk, for the old folk. I mean, so the thing they did was make the AC team. I don't know what AC stands for, but the T stands for team. So the AC team was made in 2011 by Homeland Security, and in literally a year, 2012 to 2013, they increased the prosecution of traffickers in the United States by 35%. That's pretty insane if you think about it. So if we were to get this to worldwide levels and have like other country specialists, combine forces into this, it could do something, right? It could do something. As I mentioned before, the TIP office and HHS funding have given 69 million collectively to 86 worldwide anti-traffic projects. Nice.
I mean, it is human trafficking after all. It's a fitting number.
Yeah, I mean, oh. Yep. I mean, we might as well wrap up. The rest of this is kind of redundant at this point. There's
you can
so
just
much
speed through it, and then we could be like an overall final conclusion.
Might as well. So okay, so this is I'm gonna just like announce this. Basically, it would just be recalling the September 19, 2017 72nd meeting of the United Nations General Assembly, where the USA themselves had a commitment that is for a call to action to end forced labor, modern slavery, and human trafficking. The USA is like, yeah, we should do that. Technically speaking, it doesn't really do anything. A call to action, right? Like it's a declaration of independence. It's an emancipation proclamation. It doesn't actually do anything.
It's like the Calgary,
but it sure gets people hyped up.
Remember that one, the Calgary and
finally, yeah.
War is illegal.
Oh, that thing.
Yeah, we all know how that went.
Good old time World War. Okay, finally. 10-point plan, President's Interagency Task Force. That's not even the whole acronym. The President's Interagency Task Force to monitor and combat trafficking in persons. The task force themselves is literally just all the departments, right? Department of State, Department of etc. Just all the state departments, gathered up. They have a 10-point plan. I'm not going to mention any of those 10 points because it's literally like a fat packet because they like to drag things out, make things specific.
We're not Woodrow Wilson. 14-point plan looking ass.
Yeah. plan, 14-point plan, 14 pages.
Yeah.
So that's all I got.
Okay. Well, I guess.
Well,
What do you
oh,
think? After all this, do you think organ selling and buying would be feasible and viable in today's society? The making it legal as well.
yeah, in the U.S. Yeah, regarding the United States, I not only think it's feasible and viable, I think it's necessary if we don't want to have more people dying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Literally just waiting there for organs. And when they get them, the price is so ridiculous for the transplant itself that they can't do anything about it other than pay. So that's where the work to pay off program comes in. So
Yeah.
I definitely think it's necessary. I definitely think it's a really good idea. Other people might be opposed to allowing buying and selling organs. I haven't discussed too much about why they would be opposed, but one of the major reasons is just like the whole iffiness of current programs that involve it, like the whole prisoner harvesting organs thing. But just like because the whole idea of it is uncomfortable, if you will.
Yeah. So I guess the main 2 points in making this possible
Yeah.
would be one, the government incentives like the temporary free healthcare that you mentioned, and two, just like making it government
Nope.
sponsored in general, just like not making it privatized. Because like if we make it privatized, like some prisons today, most prisons today actually they're privatized, right? They're not like government sponsored; they're actually privatized. That like creates a huge problem. Like people are just going to do it for the money, not for the actual people. But the job of the government is to do it for the people, right? It's in their constitution. It's even in the constitution, right?
Yep.
For the people.
For the
So
people, by the people.
yeah, and that's how
Yep.
you know that it's not going to be like some private company where they just all care about profit. The government is going to be like giving you these tax deductions. They're going to be giving you these free temporary healthcare. That's though these incentives are going to increase the amount of organ donors, make it affordable, and make it legal. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we already talked about like the small. I mean, one of them would probably be time because the government's slow to do literally everything. But another thing that would be good would be making it organized, right? I'm pretty sure, like at the beginning, you mentioned your identification thing, so we know where these organs came from, stuff like that. The government could do that easily, right?
Yeah.
Because it's going through them. They like to keep things organized, and mark who the organ came from, like blood type of the person it came from, what it's got on the surface of the organ, stuff like that. Meanwhile, privatized companies, they could get into paper trouble, right? Where they have the wrong papers, they don't have papers for this organ, where did they get it, etc.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I guess that's the podcast, guys, on organ trafficking. If this seemed a little one-sided, it's because Psyche actually did this for his essay, so he's kind of a literal expert on this, whereas I was like trying to give my expert opinion on this and then do some research while he was talking, play a little devil's advocate, give my opinions on it. So yeah, this was a little different from what we usually do.
And in the end, we ended up agreeing that it needs to be done.
Yep.
Through a regulated way, but it needs to be done.
Yeah. That's
so
insane,
nice.
Like, the amount of people that are like on the waiting list, it's insane.
Yeah, I rechecked that fact, and the 140K I said, right? 140K waiting.
Yeah.
That's not even worldwide. That was just in the U.S.
Damn.
So yeah, I checked that. That was just in the U.S.
Okay. Well, with that note, I guess we'll see you guys next time. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more podcasts, different types of podcasts.
As always.
Yep. See ya.